I would say pretty much so. The religious and the ethnic identity are the main identities till this very day in the Western Balkans, in all of the Balkan societies, and they shape essentially the way the ordinary citizens function and make their choices on. So this paradigm has been essentially emphasized during the 1990s after the breakup of Yugoslavia and the Yugoslav wars, and it hasn't changed till this very day. There has been a really strong impetus for the creation of the civic movements throughout the Balkan countries. I would just recall the protests in Bosnia in 2014 or many protests in Serbia which are truly civic in order to overcome all the ethnic, religious or national divisions in the Balkans. And I really think that there is this genuine will in the Balkans to overcome these divisions, to have something that is above only am I a Serb, a Croat or a Bosniak, am I a Christian or a Muslim. So I think that in these regards there is a possibility to create. It's a long process, especially in a post-conflict society. It takes way longer than in other well-embedded democracies such as the ones in the Western Europe. So it's still a fragile and long-term process, but I think that the very beginning is there, and we should just on that wave ride on that wave in essentially to support this process and to make it feasible and sustainable. I think that the civic engagement in the Western Balkans is so more welcomed and so much still has to show, such as the big protests as I mentioned in Serbia or in Bosnia, or the one in Macedonia in 2016 that has overthrown the authoritarian decade rule. So the results are there, but there still has a big room of improvement for the further for the future. The usual answer is we are the youth. We are not and cannot be held responsible for anything that has happened during the war in former Yugoslavia. But for me, it's okay once you're born in 1990s to say, okay, I cannot be responsible. But you are responsible if you deny it. You are responsible if you take part in just glorifying the convicted war criminals. And that's where the responsibility of the youth lies in the region. To step up and say, okay, we know what has happened in the 1990s, we know what has caused the war, but we also know that we have to take the action today in order to prevent the new war. We also know that we have to defend the public space from the convicted war criminals and all those politicians or military generals who took part in the 1990s to step up and say, okay, it's not your place here anymore. So that's where I see the responsibility of the youth in the Balkans nowadays. The youth and in general the population in the Western Balkans sees the European Union as a paradise which once you join all these problems will be solved. So it's a kind of a myth that is a bit shrinking due to the current situation in Hungary and Poland, but nonetheless many people perceive the European Union till this very day as a miracle, as something once we are there all the problems will be solved, and I think that it's pretty much the disillusion that is still present. Also, there was a good mentioning that people tend to see the European Union as the ATM. Once we are there, the cash will just come. But rather, it's as I said, the disillusion of the people there. Probably not the only, but in this very situation, the best. The one that can give that can deliver concrete results, and that gives you the opportunity, what we say, the incentives, the inspiration. Once you meet these criteria, your society for yourself will be better, but also for the Europe as such. So I think that the European Union membership is essentially the best incentive these societies can have in order to reform themselves. And in this sense, the European Union is still a dream to be dreamed in the Western Balkans.